annual SANRC First Year Experience Conference. It is absolutely wonderful to be here with all of you again and in person after the, let me call it, extraordinary last 2 years. And as we open this conference in 2022, I can't help but remember the conference that was postponed in 2020 and the fact that the late Professor Sue Ellen Shea had been scheduled to be our opening keynote speaker in 2020. I think many of you know Sue Ellen Shea. She was a shining light in our higher education world, and she was sadly only one of many that we lost during these last 2 truly horrible years. And I think these losses remind us that we are so grateful for our lives. We are so grateful to have arrived at the state of what we now call this new normal. And I think for many of us, this conference marks the moment when we can actively resume our professional lives again. And over the next few days, we will be critically examining this new normal in the context of our work with South Africa's universities. And I think there is some comfort in the framing of this moment as a new normal, because we dearly want to imagine ourselves settling down to some sort of order after what has been the profound uncertainty of these last 2 years. And this language of the new normal allows us to kind of normalize this present moment. And one of the questions that we'll be asking ourselves at this conference is, how normal is this new normal? In the context of all the changes that the pandemic has wrought in our lives over these last 2 years, we have to use our discomfort with this new normal, our uncertainty about the present, to try to assess this moment, to reframe our understanding of where we are at this moment, and hopefully to arrive at some kind of new understanding of where we actually are right now. We have this precious opportunity over the next few days to learn from and with each other. This conference allows us, for example, to listen to the world-renowned scholar, Professor Joe Cusio from Marymount, California University. It allows us to learn, for example, from the research insights of dynamic scholars such as Dr. Cyril Walters and her distinguished team at Stellenbosch University. The conference allows us the space to examine, to discuss, and also to critique our experiences in navigating this pandemic, and importantly, in serving our students. Now, as we open this conference, I would like to remind you all that what we are doing here is profound as a community that is dedicated to working with our students and, importantly, working in service of our students. We are trying to make inroads into what is highly complex, deep-seated, and an ongoing problem of student retention and student success at our universities. And colleagues, it is well known that the majority of South Africa's student population, 70% of whom are poor, Black, and African, are embroiled in a struggle to succeed at university on account of a number of factors, one of which is our inheritance from our apartheid and our colonial past. And in addition to this highly visible culture of student protest that's now come to dominate the higher education landscape, there is a wealth of studies and published literature that bears testimony to student unhappiness and discontent while in our higher education system. The troubling reality, and we've seen the recent events at Stellenbosch University, is that Black students, Black African students, are much more likely to encounter upsetting and alienating experiences of the higher education journey than any other category of students. And this is something that we as a community have to actively change. Now, as a community of scholars and practitioners, we are trying to establish here a whole new culture at our universities. And here at this conference, one is able to see the scale of transformation across the entire system At this conference, we have represented 22 of the 26 of South Africa's public universities. And as we know, as institutions, we all have our differences. We are serving different populations of students. We are located in different geographical contexts. We have our own histories, our own institutional cultures. But the one thing that South Africa's universities all have in common is that we all want our students to succeed. And these are not things that can be accomplished overnight. We need patience to navigate all the problems that keep our students from thriving, from surviving, and from succeeding at university. There are no silver bullets, and there's no easy resolution here. But there is the scope to learn together and to learn to think differently about the problems and how to navigate those problems that are actually within our scope of resolution. And there is strength in unity. I can proudly say that one of the greatest accomplishments of this small center is exactly this, growing this network of scholars and practitioners who are dedicated to matters of first-year experience and student success, and who do so from a place of servant leadership. It goes without saying that I wish you all a wonderful and fulfilling conference experience. Our team is on hand, and they will be available to assist you with anything that you need over the next 2 days. Just want to remind you that even the best planned events are not immune to some administrative or technical glitches. So if that does happen, I will ask you to please be patient with us. And having said that, this is our very first hybrid conference, and we are absolutely excited to be doing this. On that note, please allow me to introduce someone who is a pillar of strength for this small center. It's Dr. Andre van Zyl. Dr. van Zyl is the director of the Academic Development Center at the University of Johannesburg. And the SANRC is housed under the Academic Development Center. So under his leadership, this center has thrived. And I think in difficult times, Dr. van Zyl has helped us to survive. So I turn to him now just to offer some words of introduction as we open this conference.
I'm even being cut off there by the camera. There you go. That's what a pillar means, you see, Annsilla. So there you go. Annsilla and I always joke about when I come to the mic and she comes to the mic, because of the difference in our height when we reach towards the sky. Thank you, Annsilla, for those kind words and for the introduction. Colleagues, it's absolutely wonderful to be with you this morning. I think I represent mostly UJ today, and I think one of the things Annsilla said is that the SANRC is housed in UJ, but I think importantly, this isn't the UJ conference. The center doesn't belong to UJ. It's got its own identity, not just in terms of the way that it looks and its own branding, but it's in its functioning as well. And the role that UJ plays within the center, and I think Annsilla can attest to that, is we don't interfere in the center. We allow the center to run the SANRC and the first year experience as it sees fit to serve the sector. And this is the 8th year of the existence of the center. It's the 7th conference, but the center actually got started, if you have to be technical about it, in November 2014. And I wanted to go all the way back to that, because in November 2014, our colleagues from DHET provided us with the first funding to start the South African National Resource Center for the first year experience. And I must say, I'm not sure if we would have added the whole long name if we had to choose again today, but we were under quite a bit of pressure to get it going. And we had colleagues from the States who supported us wonderfully. But the center then got started, and I think it's important for me, in South Africa we're very good to see what we get wrong, and that's right, because we get many things wrong. I think we could stand here and say everything that we get wrong, because the list is long. But sometimes I think it's also important to remind us that we do get certain things right, and that we do move forward. And therefore I decided to go back to where we started in 2015, the first conference held in Johannesburg. By the way, this shirt comes from that conference. Tells you I don't change my wardrobe that often. But this is actually a shirt from that conference. we made them for that conference. So the first thing that comes from 2015, well, the first two things, Annsilla and I were both there, and then this shirt was there, right? But in 2015, we held the first conference to discuss this issue because it had become apparent in our system that the issue that one of the big issues we were grappling with, and there are many, was that we have a participation rate of 18 to 25-year-olds that is under 20%. It's quite popular in South African higher education for people still. I think it's become less popular to say the students are failing because they shouldn't have been there in the first place. I use a statistic at UJ when I speak to the new staff to show them the participation rate in higher education according to the World, I think it's the World Bank, across the different sectors. The lowest participation rate in the world per sector is in sub-Saharan Africa. We are the only part that is below 10% as a division that is used by the World Bank. In places like Europe and North America, the participation rate is close to 80%. Please let that sink in for a minute. 80% of 18 to 24-year-olds participate in some form of higher education, post-school education. In South Africa, we are below 20%, or on about 20%. That's about where we are. In 2015, when we held the first conference, we were below, we were on about 16%. And one of the big issues at that point was that the research was showing, and we didn't do the research before, that of that group of students entering, that below 20%, about half were graduating, and the other half were not, if we looked across the system. And when we looked at the stats a little bit more closely, we realized in, for example, 2002, of everybody that entered the system, 25.6% of students had dropped out by the beginning of their second year. So the first to second year dropout in 2002, nationally speaking, was 25%. So we took, in the higher education system, which is represented here, because these stats actually include further education and training as well, we took about 10%, and we lost a quarter by the end of year one as a system. And the talk at that point was to say, but we are not efficient as a system. There is a big issue with our efficiency, and I think that was true, and we spotted it, and I think as a system, we are still busy confronting that. But I can tell you now from the DHEAD stats that we have, for the 2017 national cohort, that's the latest stats I could get from their website, we only lost 11% at the end of their first year, right? And we had moved from 25% in 2002 to 11% dropout. Now that's still too high, I would argue, because we haven't pushed up the participation rate. So one of the things that is in our national development plan is to push up our participation rate towards 30%, 25 to 30%. That's where we want to go as a nation. But the initial argument was that we shouldn't be pushing up a system that is as inefficient as 50% non-completion. And that makes sense, right? How would you push up a system's participation if fewer than half of people are actually, or let's say about half of people are graduating? And I can tell you, ladies and gents, colleagues, that when we come to 2022, that picture has changed substantially. We are seeing 10% of students dropping out at the end of the first year. And I would argue that needs to be closer to 5%. We will always have dropout, right? It's never going to happen that we're going to keep all students from first to second year. But I think we need to ask ourselves, in a country like ours, with our situation, what is an acceptable dropout rate? And I think we're going to see our government push up the participation rates in the next decade, if we're looking forward. And if that happens, we're going to get more underprepared students. We're going to get more students who are going to struggle to adjust and adapt to the situation. And what we cannot afford is for that first year dropout rate to start pushing up too high again. And therefore, I think the discussions that we are having here have become, I think they've always been important, have remained very important. Because I think that is still the biggest series of transitions, and I think we must place them as a multiple. We mustn't say it's a transition from school to higher education. That's not true. It is a whole complex series of transitions that our students have to make, and that we have to facilitate and make ourselves as the system has changed over time. And therefore, these discussions, I think, remain very, very important as we move towards a system where we approach 25, hopefully 30% participation rate of our young people, That is how we are going to change this country, in my view. As we are changing our society and as we are changing our country, higher education's role is and remains very important. I think it's crucial for us to be able to say, one little additional thing I have to add, just because Shiba is sitting next to me here. One of the things that was true in 2015, when we had the first conference, we had just received the money we needed in November of the previous year. Now we're sitting in 2022, and we have just received the money we needed to continue our work again in November 2021. I want to thank the Department of Higher Education and Training, because once again, I think it's important to say when we get things right. Our colleagues at DED have supported us staunchly over the past 7 years to develop and establish the center, and they've once again supported us with funding that will basically take us hopefully to the end of 2024 at least. And we are looking for additional funding, and we'll continue our discussion with them. But I want to thank the colleagues at DHET through the University Capacity Development Grant for the support that they provided for this initiative, because I think we all agree that it is important. I want to thank Annsilla and her team for organizing the conference, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come, whether digitally or whether physically. It is so good to see you all here again. I hope you're going to enjoy the conference, and we look forward to the discussions we're all going to have. Thank you very much, and welcome. So Annsilla has asked me to just introduce Shiba. So it's wonderful for us to have an official representative from the Department of Higher Education and Training at the conference. I think, how many colleagues have we got from the, just you? Okay, we've got 2 online as well. We would have had at least 1 more here, but it's wonderful to have you here, Shiba. Shiba Diketane, am I pronouncing your surname correctly? Is from the Department of Higher Education and Training, and he is also going to say a few words. I'm going to hand over to you, Shiba.
Well, thank you so much, Andre and Annsilla, for the nice words. Welcome. My introduction, and good morning, colleagues. It is indeed a privilege, I mean, for me personally and the department to be part of this conference. This is one of the key platforms that we do think need to be encouraged and created within the bigger project of addressing challenges that are faced or are facing higher education. And student success is one of those. In fact, it's at the center of challenges that remain persistent within the broad project of transformation of higher education. Now, you will agree with me that student success or academic success remains the most resistant of the challenges that we identified in 1997, just immediately after our democracy, in respect to higher education, which was hugely unequal, alongside issues relating to access, alongside issues relating to inequalities when it comes to funding and all the other issues that you may think of. And today we are still sitting with that challenge, which remains very, very arrogant, and is not moving. Even where we are registering some success, we still see patterns of inequalities in terms of race, and many other problematic areas of transformation, including gender. So success remains really a priority for us as a department as a result of that. And I wish to indicate, colleagues, that this poses serious challenges for the sector and South Africa's socio-economic imperatives of addressing, of ensuring equitable, inclusive, innovative and participatory, economic growth, and of course, growing or transformed higher education. As Andre has indicated, that one of the areas where we continue to see problems, which are very much evident to the challenges relating to success, is in terms of participation. Now, this is not just restricted to the sector participation, by our academics and students, but it spills over to our economy and the societal, issues. How do our graduates contribute to our economy and the societal development issues? And because of the success challenges that we continue to grapple with as a sector, we see the same patterns happening, even in terms of how do they participate in the broader economic and social or societal development initiatives. And that is a problem. When you look at research initiatives that are currently undertaken, they continue to be dominated by the privileged few. I'll be honest with you that they continue to be dominated by the white, male, old academics, which is a problem. We cannot go on like that. And even where you see some difference, you realize that those are not the South Africans, are actually foreign, academics. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but it is important that we address these patterns to make sure that our participation reflects true South Africa. It reflects our very own, and female in particular. Now that is important. So the implications are quite massive if we do not address these issues of success. The question of employment remains a challenge on the global scale if you look at South Africa where we are. And higher education has become the biggest contributor, following all the other subsectors of the post-school education and training. We have always known that our TVET colleges are actually, the biggest when it comes to the contribution to our graduates that remain unemployed. But higher education has become another key contributor lately. And the question is why? That points directly to the success challenges that we are faced with. These are challenges that this conference have got to deal with and make sure that are addressed. The question of social cohesion, very problematic, and all as a result of these success challenges that we are grappling with in higher education. And of course, the imperative of addressing poverty. We cannot even begin to think of dealing with poverty challenges because we are grappling with, just not getting our students to get employed. So these are key problems that, remain at the highest level as a result of these student success challenges in higher education. Now, and for higher education, addressing these challenges, colleagues, or barriers to student success, is at the heart of the department's contribution towards transforming higher education in South Africa. The challenges relating to the first year experience and the broad student academic and life transitional challenges form the nucleus of what this conference has got to focus on. And I'm very happy Andre did talk to the fact that we're not just talking to the first year experience challenges. The challenges are throughout the academic trajectory. And at the end, we end up with only 2 out of the 10 that enter the system. Now that tells you that we have got a serious issue to deal with, and that is ensuring that we address all these barriers across the academic trajectory, not just at the level of entry for higher education, but also at all the other levels. I mean, you can think of the problems that first year honors and masters students encounter. Very big problems of relating to the development of key research bases, such as the research proposal. When we analyze the quality of the research proposals that are coming from the system, our own system, for masters and the PhD programs, particularly for those that we continue to support within the University Capacity Development Program. Then, out of 70 plus, or plus or minus 70 applications, less than 15 will make it through without so many questions. Less than 15. And that is a problem. So this is an indication of the fact that the transitional challenges are not just at the entry level, across the entire academic trajectory, and even worse at the level of the PhD. So addressing these key issues really is a priority for us as a department. Now, the South African National Research Center for First Year Experience and Students in Transition is a key project. As my colleagues have indicated, that we have resolved to support this initiative because of its focus on addressing these problem areas, the questions relating to transitions, and of course, having information that is of quality, research-backed to support all the institutional initiatives to address student success challenges. So this is a very, very important project, and hence we continue to support it through the University Capacity Development Program as one of the university-led collaborative projects led by the University of Johannesburg. And, you know, I must indicate that the second cycle, you know, this project was supported by an amount of 8.7 million just for the cycle 2021 up until 2023. So for this project to really be able to run, you know, with all these programs of capacitating the system. And with those words, colleagues, on behalf of the department and the DDG responsible for universities, I wish to thank the University of Johannesburg, you know, Dr. Annsilla, Dr. Nyar, and the team, of course. I mean, those that are sitting, you know, behind the scenes, making sure that this becomes a success. And I also wish to thank you for being part of this conference, and further wish that you have a productive, you know, participation in this conference, you know, from today up until Friday. So all of the best, you know, for a very fruitful engagement throughout. And thank you so much.